And welcome back. We are now in the process of getting ready to animate our second character. But before I do that, I want to go ahead and take a look at this first character here, because we did decide we want these to eventually have some kind of interaction. So if I open up the symbol for this, you can see where we have our different frames of animation here, include our walking animation. And we can see if this character wanted to interact, we can see by the time we get ready to throw that shuriken, you can see that's happening at frame 15. We probably want this character to start anticipating it when this character is raising his arm, which is about frame 10. So right about here, we got about 15 frames at max, maybe 10 frames at the minimum for this character to react to this throw. And of course, we'll have to then animate him to move so that way between frames 15 and 25, he is avoiding that collision there. So keeping that in mind, let's go ahead and jump right into Ninja number 2 here. So the first thing we want to do is, of course, set these all up so that they can actually be the various different tweens. Just as a reference, if we look back at our original one here, all right, we set these up here as classic tweens. All right, the only motion tween we actually used was for our weapon. So we're going to do the same exact thing over here on Ninja 2. We're going to just go ahead and set these up as classic tweens. Now we might have to break these apart, which is fine, but just for now, let's just go ahead and just create some classic tweens. And we're going to do that on each of these layers. All right. And what I want to do is maybe have, for example, let's start with our right arm. And we, of course, want to go to our free transformation tool because this pivot point needs to move up into the shoulder. And I'm going to have his arm maybe start at a different angle here so he's not just looking like he's a static robot. And maybe do the same thing with his left arm. I'm going to, again, grab that pivot point, move it more towards the shoulder. And I might have him just kind of as a more ready pose here. Let's adjust his legs a little bit. Again, moving that pivot point up. And make that look more of a natural gait here. Grab his other leg. Alright. And that looks pretty okay, though I do think the body could use some adjustment here. So we're actually going to tilt that body up just a little bit here. And we'll grab the head here and also move that forward just a small bit. So this is a good start for our character. And what we want him to do is we want him to react to that star being thrown. So maybe he's just going to stand here for a couple frames. And remember, it's frame 10 was about when that is being thrown. So we want him to start anticipating that. And what we're going to do is we're going to insert some keyframes here in light of that. So we're going to maybe have him move his legs a little bit and his arms just to be ready. And then, of course, by the end, we want him to kind of be more ducking underneath all that. So keyframes are being inserted here. So we can, of course, go ahead and get ready to do those various different motions. And now that those keyframes are in place, I can then, of course, set up how I want that to be. So let's start first with this arm. We want it to be reacting where he is anticipating this. So maybe we can have him move his arm to more to the side. And I notice that that arm is not quite where I want it to be. So I want to make sure that that arm is also then accordingly moved up a little bit here. So it doesn't look like it's floating. There we go. That looks pretty good there. Pivoting around that shoulder, pretty good. And now we're going to go ahead and address the leg. And I'm just going to go ahead and adjust that. If he's getting ready to move, I may move that back just a few frames. Same thing with the other leg. Let's go ahead and adjust that one just a little bit here. Again, him anticipating movement. We might move the left arm. Since we moved the right arm down, we're going to also move this one down just a few frames. And we're going to maybe have the head just move down just a little bit. All right, so we're actually just going to use the arrow key to bring that down just a little bit. Not too many frames, but just to show he's anticipating things. So as we move this, you can see he's getting ready to move. You can see his body is anticipating it. And what we want to do from here, because he knows this is coming, we're actually just going to set our last keyframe up right here at the very end, so that we can go ahead and just move him into that single solid movement here. And then once we have that in place, we can then go ahead and actually set this up so that way this character is going to hit the ground. So let's go ahead and start with, let's say, the head layer here, because we need to know where that shuriken is going to be. So let's just go ahead, just for reference, kind of take a point here. So we can see it's coming right across right now, right where his eyeball is right about where that is ending. So I need to make sure that his head is going to be any point lower than that. So I'm actually just going to grab the head, and I'm just going to move it down. And then once that's in place, I can then kind of adjust the rest of the layers accordingly. So I'm going to take that body, and I'm going to have to rotate it in such a way that it follows this. And we may end up having to do additional keyframes to get this to look much more natural, because we want this to kind of look like he is doing this very naturally, where he is avoiding the blow. All right, but he doesn't look all the movement. We don't want it to be very janky, so we do have a little bit of jankiness there in the arms. All right, but that's also coming from our original transition. So let's just play that, and you can see he's coming down, but that doesn't look like a very fast reaction. It looks like he's kind of coming down to the last second. So actually, may want to actually have this ducking action happen sooner, because remember, it's coming, we said, about frame 20 to 25. So I actually want to take what he's doing here, and I'm actually going to change this here so that these are not here, but I'm going to actually just do this. When I right click, I'm going to remove those frames. It's going to bring it back in, and then all I'm going to do to make sure that the ninja exists afterwards is just go ahead and insert these frames back in. So right click, insert frame, so he'll have frames where he's just standing there. So if I play that, you can see now he's moving a little bit faster, but that still seems a little too slow for a reaction there for me. So I'm actually going to kind of do the same thing here. I'm going to actually come in here. I'm going to actually, these are the frames where he's dropping. I'm actually going to just take about 5 frames out of here. So I'm just going ahead and right click. Let's just remove those frames. And we will have to insert a couple frames here. So let's right click and insert frame. And we want to do that again so that we can make sure that we are having enough frame movement here. So now if we play this, you can see he's moving, and that's a lot faster. So nice snappy action there. So we of course have now our character animated. We can kind of see how that is working, and that is looking really nice. Now we will probably want to do a little bit of cleanup here with our scene, but that is how we of course can animate that second character really nice and easy.